Well, Eagles Nation, the Super Bowl is now in the books. We're going to talk a little bit about that, of course. And the Philadelphia Eagles' critical offseason has begun. We're going to talk about it next on Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff. Well, good afternoon, good morning, and good evening. Whatever time of the day it is that you're listening to this program, welcome to Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff. And before we get started here, a couple things off the top that I wanted to kind of just get off my chest and make sure I don't forget about. One, special thanks again for Matt joining us in the last podcast where we kind of gave a preview of the Super Bowl and thoughts on how the season ended with Matt, to bring him on to get his thoughts. He will continue to be a good friend of the podcast and an important contributor going forward. And, I mentioned also how I am migrating the podcast over to YouTube. That does not mean, just to be clear, that it's going to be leaving the platforms that it's currently on. So whatever one that you're currently listening to this program on, it's not like it's going to be removed from there. So, no worries about that. Certainly appreciate you listening. Now, this is just another means and another channel to get the program out there. And, once I do migrate it over to YouTube, at least initially, it is just going to be audio format. And then the plan going forward at some point is to get my beautiful mug on the screen, which I'm sure you all are anticipating. And I say that with total sarcasm. But, I think that's the next step for this program. And that'll also allow me to do what I've been really wanting to do. And, once I'm able to, record some of these live, they'll be live on YouTube and they'll be later posted on the podcast networks. That's how I hope it's going to work. And we'll see, because I'm still trying to iron out some of these wrinkles because YouTube is just not making it easy to make this merger. It's just a lot of complications from a technical standpoint that I'm dealing with. But what that means for you is once I do get this over to YouTube, and you can start subscribing now, even though there's no content on there at the moment. But the channel is Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff, with the W/Geoff, just like it is listed on your podcast. Exactly the same. So you can go into YouTube, type that in there under search channel or whatever, find me, and make sure you subscribe so that once I launch it, you guys are ready to rock and roll with me. So put that plug out there. So pretty excited about that for sure, because again, what I've been trying to say, and I haven't done so yet, is that once I am on YouTube, then we're going to have at least live chat where you guys would be able to engage with me while I am recording the podcast, while I'm live, through the YouTube chat. And at that point, I'll be able to answer your questions live, see your comments live, be able to, respond to some of the comments that I see. If there's any discussion going on, I want to add my 2 cents, that type of thing. I think it's pretty excited next phase to go into. So definitely excited for that. So, all right, now, so much to really talk about. I mean, we had the Super Bowl, obviously, and, I pretty much nailed the score. I said it was going to be 27-24 49ers, ended up being 25-22 Chiefs. So the Chiefs get the job done. I was happy about that. I was rooting for the Chiefs, as I mentioned. I did think, and I still think, that the 49ers are the better team. I mean, that whole first half, they almost completely dominated the game. And because of that, and how close the game was, and how the 49ers were just not able to capitalize and score, The longer the game went on, I was like, the Chiefs going to win. You keep Mahomes and Reed around, they're going to find out a way to win this game. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, the 49ers, that game was just one sided as a game could get in the first quarter and into the second quarter before the Chiefs finally started to stabilize some things. But man, I mean, the 49ers just couldn't get any points. They just were not. I mean, you got to give the Chiefs defense some credit for keeping them in the game. But man, they have just kept shooting themselves in the foot over and over and over again in the first half especially. Second half, I think the Chiefs really started to play much better, especially offensively. But the 49ers, I swear, hand in the air, man, they're the better team. But the better team doesn't always win. They didn't win last year either. The Eagles were better than the Chiefs last year. But the big fumble that gave them 7 points, which as soon as it happened, I'm like, that's going to be the difference in the game. I just knew it. I just freaking knew it. And then of course, what happened at the end of the game with the flag, and but the Eagles were better last year. The Chiefs won, and I think the 49ers are a better team, but the Chiefs won, and you got to give the Chiefs credit because, like I said, as much as they were dominated, they never got down, they never got out, they kept fighting, and then Mahomes, just like I said if it's hard to go against Mahomes, and this is the reason. It's the reason why I said it because you just knew in this game, late in the game or in overtime or whatever it was, Mahomes would figure out how to win. And that's exactly what happened. So the guy is just an amazing player. And, I have much respect for Mahomes and I have a lot of respect for Andy Reid. I've always said that even when I wanted him fired back in the Eagles days. I wanted him fired far sooner than he was with the Eagles. I've talked about this at times during my podcast. So those of you who've been with me you understand and well, not understand, but I mean, you may not understand, meaning you agree with me, but I've given my reasons why I wanted Reed fired probably about 4 or 5 years before he actually finally was in Philly. Um, but none of that was because I didn't think he was a good coach, which probably doesn't make much sense to you and sounds contradictory. But I just, some of his flaws that he had in Philly were just so frustrating. I just want him the heck out of here. And I always said he was a good game caller for the most part, which, is good. And he was pretty good at drafting. And he was good at, obviously surrounding the team with good coaching overall for the most part. A lot of people came from the coaching tree. Spagnola, McDermott, were there with the Bills. John Harbaugh, of course, with the Ravens, and a slew of others, right? Um, and but I had major issue with his game management. The fact that he never gave McNabb any wide receivers during his prime years, just expected him to do everything on his own, and perform miracles at the quarterback with hardly any weapons, if any weapons at all, at wide receiver, until he finally got him TO. And, of course, they went to the Super Bowl. And I'm like, yeah, he could have done that 5 years sooner. But he gave McNabb absolutely garbage, and I just always held it against him. He was the GM as well as the coach, and he just never gave McNabb any wide receivers, ever. And then but he learned. He learned from it. He got it. He was a better coach, much better coach now in Kansas City than he was in Philadelphia. And even though he was successful in Philadelphia, no doubt. But I know a lot of McNabb haters love to point the finger and blame McNabb for their failures in NFC Championships games, and I point the finger at Reid. I mean, Reid again didn't get McNabb with weapons. Once you get as good as McNabb was, once you start playing those really elite teams, when you get down to the Final Four, you need weapons. Eventually, it's going to come up and haunt you, and that's what happened because McNabb had nobody to throw to. Nobody. And yet the McNabb haters, who just are blinded by their own hatred and they're just purely ignorant about the sport of football, um, they just they blame McNabb, which is um, not thinking straight. Clearly, it's just not. It's just not. Plain and simple. It's just not. Um, it's the easy default guy to always point the quarterback, but who is he throwing to? Who's he throwing to? Nobody. And getting back to Reed, game management issues plagued his Eagles coaching career. Not getting the plays in time, having to call timeouts in the first quarter that he would need at the end of this first half. Same thing in the second half. He would call timeouts in the third quarter and have none when they needed it at the end of the game in those critical games. Um, all the time it happened. It happened over and over and over again. For anyone that lived through the Andy Reid years, know this. Um, but McNabb's always the fall guy to the ones that just can't get over the hatred of him. So they have no credibility. I've said this many, many times. Not that McNabb always played great. I'm not saying that, but give the put Mahomes in those offenses with McNabb. Give him uh, Todd Pinkston and Hank Baskett and Nate Brown and these other guys that they had. They didn't even have nearly as good of a tight end. Chad Lewis, who was just a kind of an average tight end, not Travis Kelsey, right? See what Mahomes can do with those guys. Think he's going to win Super Bowls? I don't know. We'll never know that, but I'll tell you this: it'll be a lot harder for him to do it. So, but this is about Reed. It's not about McNabb. But it's hard to talk about Reed without mentioning McNabb, especially since the 5% of fans out there, which might even be higher than 5%. There's so many clueless McNabb haters that are in our fan base. It's just so frustrating. Um, but it is what it is. They won't go away. They're just, you figure as time goes on that eventually that they would smarten up, figure things out. But no, there's some of them are just as dumb as they are today than they were back then. Um, but Andy Reid is now approaching the pinnacle of all time head coaches as he wins another Super Bowl. And, again, I like Andy Reid and I was rooting for him. It's good to see he's a good guy, good coach. And now he's becoming just one of the all time great coaches. Unfortunately, it didn't happen here. Um, and then when people ask me, are you, do you think it was a mistake getting rid of Andy Reid? No, absolutely not. I'm not going to be a hypocrite now and look back and say, uh, you know, that I'm regret that the Eagles let him go. No, I wanted him gone many years before he Larry finally pulled the plug on him. I wanted him gone. So I'm not going to, be a hypocrite now and say I wish they kept him. Reed just needed to learn, and unfortunately, he learned from his mistakes while he was the Eagles coach. What's the first thing he did? And I've mentioned this before when he got Mahomes, surrounded him with talent, some of the best talent in the NFL. Travis Kelsey, the best, maybe the best tight end of all time. He's going to be able to make that argument for sure. Tyreek Hill, one of the most dynamic playmakers in the NFL history at wide receiver. He quickly gave him great talent at wide receiver. He had the other guy there that used to be with the Watkins, Sammy Watkins, was there with Mahomes early on. So, congratulations to the Chiefs and the Chiefs fans out there to listen. Congratulations to Andy Reid, our former head coach. Congratulations to Pat Mahomes, who is quickly becoming an all-time great himself. And congratulations to Travis Kelsey, Jason's brother, for probably having one of the greatest lives in the world right now, winning his back-to-back Super Bowl championships. And even though I'm not a fan of Taylor Reid, I couldn't even Taylor Reid, Taylor Swift. I couldn't even name one song honestly, and it's not my kind of music. I know I've always known who she was because she's so in mainstream and pop culture, but I swear to God, I couldn't name you one Taylor Swift song. I'm not exaggerating. I can't name one. If somebody played one in the background, I wouldn't say, "Hey, that's Taylor Swift." I wouldn't know. That's how little I know about her music. I know it's not good because if it was good, or the music that I listen to. Maybe I shouldn't say good. Obviously, it's good because she's wildly successful. But if it was music that I did like, I would have certainly known about her music. So I just know I don't like her music, you know. And but I mean, she's an icon, and the guy is dating her, and just won back to back Super Bowls. Is there a better life out there than that? Unbelievable, really. Um, so let's dig into the game a little bit, and then we're going to talk about the Eagles because there's some pretty interesting news developments this week. So I talked about the 49ers and how they completely dominated, especially the first half, and how they just kept making mistakes after mistakes and unable to capitalize on their dominance. I mean, they could have been up 17 to nothing by the end of the first quarter or into the second quarter. That's how much they were easily dominating the Chiefs. They really, really were. Those of you who watched the game, which I'm assuming most of you, if not all of you, did. Um, I talked about the importance of the special teams, and I have to eat some crow. Listen, I always feel that I know what I'm talking about on here. And most of the time, because I've got it, I record this and it's in the archives forever. I could always go back and say, look, this is what I said. This is my prediction. This is how it went. Just go back to episode whatever, and you can listen to it for yourself. And a lot of times I hit on a lot of my predictions, a lot of my thoughts end up coming true, or are pretty accurate, or mostly accurate at least. Um, but I was way off on one of my predictions, and I was talking about the 49ers kicker, who now it was coming from a good place because I've seen the guy miss a lot of kicks this season. I mean, a lot of kicks. And I'm trying to remember his name now. Is it Moody or Moore or something like that? I forget what his name was. Anyway, he came up with some huge kicks. And in fact, for a short period of time, he had kicked the longest field goal in Super Bowl history until Buckner outkicked it by a few yards later in the game. Not too later either, like 10 minutes later, it seemed. Um, but he came through with some big time field goals. Now, he did miss the extra point that was blocked. So I don't know if you blame the kicker necessarily on that, or you just give Kansas City credit for getting a hand on it. Now, the Chiefs were talking about how they noticed on tape that a lot of his kicks are low and that they had a chance to get to one of them, they thought. And they did. It ended up being a crucial missed extra point that they blocked. But for the most part, that guy came through big time. And I said that was going to be a huge advantage for the Chiefs with their special teams because of the San Francisco kicker not being good at all. In fact, I think I might have said that he sucks. And he clearly did not suck in that game. So I have to eat crow on that prediction. I was wrong, even though, like I said, I saw him during the season miss some pretty not even long kicks. So I just felt that the advantage was there, but the guy came to play and made some really big time kicks, long kicks too, long field goals that he hit, two of them over 50 yards. So congratulations to that guy. He definitely made me sound like an idiot. So good job by him, and Buckner did his job. I mean, Buckner was Buckner. The guy that I was saying was, decided advantage. He wasn't an advantage, but he certainly, did what you expect him to do. And then the two punters, let's give them credit. I mean, those guys were punting inside the 10-yard line, launching these 55, 60 plus yard punts back and forth. That was impressive to see. I mean, the game for the first half, nobody's going to sit there and rant and rave that it was this exciting back and forth game. And, it was not, I mean, I always appreciate good defense, and I don't need to see shootouts all the time. And that's what we got certainly in the first half. But it was not even really like good defense. It was just a lot of, especially by the 49ers, just shooting themselves in the foot, making mistakes, and not being able to capitalize on the dominance. They were just absolutely dominating defensively and offensively the Chiefs, but just weren't able to get it done in the end zone. And McCaffrey, who never fumbles the ball early. turns it over in a big spot. Um, and they had a couple of critical drops and some penalties that kept putting him back, and that was really the story of the first half, just the 49ers dominating but not putting points on the board. I thought for the 49ers that Purdy played well. I thought that he would. I mentioned on my pregame Super Bowl podcast with Matt that I thought Purdy is a good quarterback. He gets a lot of grief out there from some aspects of NFL fandoms or fan bases that he's just a systems quarterback and he's not really that good. No, I mean, I think Purdy's very, very good. I think he's a very good quarterback, and he played well. And under the big lights, which I expected him, I said I don't think he's going to be intimidated by this game. He just seems to have that confidence. To me, I think he's even a little cocky. I mentioned, but he's got that. Certainly, he's got that confidence. He was not rattled at all. I thought he played very well. He played like I expected him to be, and that was well. Um, he didn't make any mistakes. I don't think he throw a pick. I think he threw one pick, right? He did throw one pick, I believe. I don't have the game stats, and we're a couple days removed from the game now, but I think he might have threw one pick if I remember. Um, but otherwise, he did play pretty well. He had some big drops, like I said. He had guys open that dropped the ball. He did have one play. I remember that the guy was open and he did short pass it. That was the only throw that I saw that he needed to make and he did not. And I can't remember who was cutting across. Might have been Ayuk. I'm trying to remember now. Who he had? They were inside the red zone too, and he was cutting across, and Purdy threw it short. And I think he was on either third or fourth down, which would have easily been a first down and set him up for like a first and goal. But it didn't happen. That was the only really bad throw that I saw him make. One of the other things, I mean, you talk about a guy that, and I was rooting against the 49ers. Again, I did pick them to win in a close game, um, but I was rooting for the Chiefs. I said that. I don't like the 49ers at all. I can't, the Eagles and 49ers, as we know, have a developing rivalry going, and I don't like I definitely don't like their fans. I do not like the 49ers fans at all, and I don't like some of their players, even though I respect them. And one of them is Greenlaw. I think Greenlaw is a really, really good linebacker, but he's the one that was starting all that crap last year against the Eagles. Remember he got he got in a fight there on the field, and he was he's just a guy that just is an agitator out there. But he's a good player, very, very good linebacker. Um, Teamed up with Warner there for the 49ers, and it's got to be tough when you dream about playing in a Super Bowl, and here's a guy who's on the sidelines, just ready to go in a change of possession. He's standing next to Fred Warner, on the sideline, and they're about to go into the game after a punt or kickoff or whatever it was, and he. I don't know if the news has come out that he's torn it or not, but he certainly sustained a major injury to his Achilles, and he was out for the game just from standing on the sidelines. I've never seen anything like that before in my life. It just tells you how easy it is to have a major injury. You don't need to be playing. We always see that with ACLs, right? Just guys running a normal route, making a cut, and their knee goes out, right? You've seen that all the time. You can tear your ACL just by walking, really. If you hit you step on a stone the wrong way and your knee gives out, you can tear your ACL. It's all a matter of, if the perfect way that your knee's going with the amount of weight and pressure on it, it can snap. And it kind of happened with him with his Achilles, which is super rare. But he was pushing off, to go start running to go into the game, and his ACL popped. I mean, not his ACL, sorry, his Achilles tendon. And again, I haven't heard if it's torn or not, but it was certainly enough to immediately have him ruled out of the game. I mean, it's just that's tough to see, because these guys. You got to feel for a guy like that who's he's played his entire career and for this game, and then he ends up getting hurt on a non-contact play just by simply running onto the field. Unbelievable. So he was missing. So that was a key injury that the 49ers lost. And, talking about the Chiefs now, and we talked about Mahomes, and, here's a guy who's becoming an immortal quickly. At the age of 28, he has been in 4 Super Bowls now and has won 3 of them at 28 years old, which is hard to believe. Um, so the guy just doesn't make mistakes. He did actually throw a pick in this one, but when the game's on the line, the guy just he works his magic. He did it against the Eagles last year. We saw it. He did it against us. Made the plays we needed to, and he did it in overtime to beat the 49ers. And the Chiefs got a special one there for sure in Mahomes. Um, he's been in the AFC Championship game. Excuse me, God, I can't speak. Bow, bow, bow. I'll be okay. He's been in the AFC Championship game every single season of his career, which, if that doesn't impress you, I don't know what will. 3 Super Bowls in 4 attempts, talked about. He has come from behind in all 3 of his Super Bowl wins. Of course, one of them, unfortunately, was against the Eagles. The other guy that really stood out to me was McDuffie. And I remember the Eagles were high in him, or at least there was rumors in that draft that year. That was the year I believe they drafted Devontae Smith when McDuffie was in that draft, I believe. But McDuffie is one hell of a player. As I watch him, he made some big time plays in this game. Batting the ball away downfield, 1-on-1 with a wide receiver. He's just a guy that makes really good plays. He's a good tackler. I know he had one penalty that was costly in the game, I think in the second half. But overall, that McDuffie is one hell of a player. And his Chiefs defense is the strength of the team. It's not their offense. And they have, from what I heard, the youngest defense by age in the NFL. So think about that. Think about that. So they won 2 straight Super Bowls, right? And they have the youngest defense in the NFL right now. Now they got to do something with Chris Jones, their talented defensive tackle. He's going to be a lot of money, but I think I heard someone say that the Chiefs are like 20 million under the cap going into next year. So it appears that they would be able to afford him and bring him back. But he's probably going to test free agency and see what's out there, and he's going to get a hefty offer from somebody. But we'll see if the Chiefs bring him back or not. That would be a big loss for them, certainly. But I saw that number 96 guy. I kept talking about number 96 in that game. Forget his name. But you guys were watching the game. He's bigger than Jones. That guy is huge. And he was making some plays. I forget his name now. I probably should have looked it up. But my point is they had some other beefy, big-time, run-stuffing defensive tackle on the Chiefs right now. Right now, playing. Even if they lose Jones, I'm sure he'd be having a bigger role in the defense. But Chiefs aren't going anywhere, folks. I mean, that team and Mahomes, they're going to be good for a long time. I mean, this is they're using the word dynasty now, throwing it around, talking about the Chiefs, and you certainly can. I mean, they've been to the AFC Championship game several years in a row now. They've won 3 Super Bowls now, back to back. First team to do that since the Patriots. I hate to keep saying it, but against the Eagles back in 2003, 2004, they won back to back Super Bowls. Even though they cheated in theirs with us with the Spygate stuff. Got to bring that up. I got to bring it up. Sorry, got to bring it up. Not sorry to bring it up. Talked about Andy Reid. Um, Here's an interesting part of the game, and I want to know if any of you caught this, but the game-winning touchdown by Mecole Hardman, who, by the way, started the season with the Jets. I mean, how happy is this guy to have the season turn out the way it did? Ended up back with the Chiefs. He was originally drafted by the Chiefs. So he ends up back with the Chiefs. He ends up catching a game-winning touchdown on a play, by the way. Did that look a little familiar to you guys? Look a little familiar? The exact same play that beat the Eagles. Twice. On the left side and then the right side. Same exact play. And I think they call it, I don't know if I wrote it down. Yeah, it's called the corn dog. That was the play. That was the play to beat the Eagles. Remember those two wide open plays? The one to the left scored an easy touchdown, and then the one to the right scored an easy touchdown. The corn dog, same exact call. Nico Hardman ran it this time. Wide open, touchdown. Andy Reid, beautiful play call, perfectly executed by Mahomes and Nicole Hardman. Game over. Chiefs win the Super Bowl. And what else about that play is important, or did you notice? He was in motion. He was in motion, something the Eagles did not do, and something I expect in the new Kellen Moore offense that we're going to have motion on this offense. Motion helps, and the Eagles rarely last in the league in running motion on offense. Another reason why their offense was just spinning its wheels, going nowhere in a lot of cases, especially second half of the season. You got to use motion, and that was a perfect example of it. Nicole Hardman starting to run across on the inside, quickly cut back to the outside. The guy completely lost his leverage, who was covering him, wide open, inside of 5 yards, touchdown. It's a great play call. Great play call. And congratulations again to the Chiefs. I'm glad they beat the 49ers. I can't stand that team. I do think the 49ers are a better team. I'll still hold to that. I think they proved it most of the game in their dominant fashion. They really were dominating the game. But you got to put points on the board, and you can't let Mahomes hang around. And that's exactly what happened. And that's why they lost the game. So, all right. Eagles news. It took me a half hour to get to it, but here we go. The day of the Super Bowl, we get the breaking news that Hassan Riddick was given permission to seek a trade. And that one really hit me hard because that's not something I first saw, would have thought was even in the realm of possibility of happening. And yet, here we are. And, you know, the initial word was that Hassan requested this permission from the Eagles and they granted it. And Hassan Riddick came out today and denied that, saying, no, I have not asked for a trade. So, so this means that the Eagles are the ones initiating this move. Now, this does not mean that Riddick will not be in the team next year. The Eagles are kind of in a quandary here as far as what to do with Riddick. He's on the last year of his 3-year deal that he signed with the Eagles. If you look at his contract compared to others with like stats, which he's a top 5, pass rusher in the NFL. He's hit double digits both of his first 2 years with the Eagles, and I think 3 or 4 straight years in the NFL. I mean, he's a premier pass rusher. They're hard to find, and they're always paid well. He's been underpaid. He's only making $15-16 million a year, which a lot of money to you and me, but to him versus his peers, amongst his peers, he's underpaid. And the Eagles got to pay him if they're going to keep him. And he's going to get $10 million more than he's making now. You're looking at $25 million plus to keep him here. That's what he's earned. That's what he deserves when you look at the the comparisons, the comps, the comps with his with like players that have this type of sack production in the league and tackles for loss and everything that he does. So, the Eagles willing to pay a guy who's going to turn 30, $25 million a season? That's the question. Because they're paying their $50 million quarterback. Okay, don't think that's a factor. Don't think that's not a factor, I should say. It's a huge factor. They also have to re-up 2 important cogs here in their team. Devontae Smith, they're going to have to lock him up. And Landon Dickinson. They're a talented guard who's going to demand a lot of money. He's made the Pro Bowl twice in his young career already. So he's not going to be cheap either. So there's only so much you can throw around in terms of a salary cap situation. So where are you going to put the money? That's the decision Eagles got to make. Now, if they do end up trading Reddick, it's going to be a huge loss in his defense. I mean, he is their number one by far pass rusher. And the Eagles have always valued that position. That's why this is a quandary. There's no doubt that the Eagles don't want to get rid of Reddick. They don't want to. I'm sure they don't want to. He does what they need, and that's get to the quarterback. He's one of the few that are very, very good and excel at it in the entire NFL. But it's going to come at a 30-year-old player making $25 million a season. Are the Eagles willing to do that? I can see why it's a quandary. I personally can see why this is an issue. Now, he keeps himself in really good shape. He's not your bona fide usual larger sack artist. You know, he's a smaller guy, so you think he'd be a little more less prone to injury and breaking down quicker. You know, as he's probably got a good. I guess what I'm saying is he's probably got a good 3 years left in him at least. I would say 3. Now, much like the entire Eagles, the whole second half of the season, his numbers went down. He had a good spurt from game 3 on, where he was the Reddick we know, and that's when he got most of his 11 sacks. But I think part of it was once they made that stupid move at defensive coordinator, they were dropping Reddick into coverage quite a bit, which is not something you do with a guy like that. That was just dumb. And so he got caught up in all the transitioning going on, the Eagles' debacle in defense. So I don't know if that collapse would be because, he's approaching 30. I think that probably has more to do with this defensive mess that they created second half of the season. But $25 million is a lot of dough. So now Reddick, I'm sure, wants to stay here. I mean, he came out today saying he didn't request a trade. But he's going to have to give the Eagles a hometown discount, I think, to stick here. If he's okay with $20 million a year, or 21 maybe, he's okay with that. Another maybe 3-year deal at $21 million a season. I think the Eagles keep him here. If he's going to go out there and demand that he makes 25 or more, then I think the Eagles will try to move him. Well, they actually are trying to move him right now. So maybe that is what he is, even though he hasn't. He hasn't personally asked the Eagles to make a trade. Maybe he has told the Eagles that, hey, yeah, I'm looking to get $25 million or more. And that's why the Eagles said, okay, we're not willing to pay that right now. So perhaps you can go and see if you can, find a team that will pay you that. And we'll see if we can make a trade with them. So that's what's going on. It doesn't mean that he's going to be gone. It does mean that there's a possibility that he may be gone next year. That is for sure. But he is under contract for another year. So, if the Eagles are not able to make a move with another team, he will be playing here next year. But it will certainly be his last year at that point to become a free agent afterwards. Or the Eagles will, if they get some really good compensation, a team offers them a second rounder, they'll make that trade, I'm sure. And they will have to go out and probably, they wouldn't go out and probably have to get another defensive end. They're going to have to go out and get another defensive end. Maybe it's Burns from Carolina, who's been some talk about, some rumors about. I can see them doing that, letting Reddick go and bringing Burns in here. I don't know how much he's asking for or what his contract is. I have to dig into that a little bit as we get further into the offseason, but that's a possibility. So we'll see. The Eagles might, if they are offered some pretty good compensation, it allows them to be able to move up and be flexible in the draft, or at least be able to draft a little bit higher with another high pick. The Eagles will try to retool the defense that way. They got a lot to do. There's a lot of issues with this team, especially defensively. Like, I wouldn't draft anyone. I said this weeks ago on a podcast that I wouldn't draft anyone on offense. Maybe an offensive lineman, Other than that, wouldn't touch the offense. Unless, a late round running back as well. Probably wouldn't hurt. But other than that, a wide receiver, if there's a guy that's there late in the draft that was kind of that fell a little bit, I wouldn't put a lot of stock in getting a high value pick there, like a second, third, fourth rounder wide receiver. I'd wait to fifth or later. Same with running back. But offensive line, if there's somebody there that's in the early rounds, go ahead and grab them. But all defense, other than that, all defense. We need safeties, we need corners, we need defensive, we need everything. Certainly need linebackers. We need every position, every single position of defense. We need to draft. So I hope it's a heavy defensive draft for the Eagles. We also need a backup quarterback. I mean, I like who we have. I don't like Mariota. I hope they ship him off, but I don't know. I think he's got a 2-year deal, right? So probably back. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see as we go forward here in the offseason what the Eagles do. We'll keep an eye on the Hassan Riddick situation, see if there's any further developments there. Fletcher Cox has been leaning towards retirement, we're hearing, which is kind of interesting. I think that he'd be doing that, but he also, there's rumors that he may go play for another team. I can see that. Like, I really kind of see, unless he gives the Eagles another discount, which I don't know if he's willing to do. I mean, if I think it depends on what Fletcher sees this Eagles team do. If he thinks they're competitive next year and he's got a chance to win another championship, Fletcher may give him the home gun discount. If he doesn't have that confidence, I think Fletcher will leave and he'll sign on with a contender, maybe the Chiefs. Andy Reid knows him, I believe. Was he here with Andy? Did Andy Reid draft Fletcher? I can't remember if he did or not. I don't remember. I know he drafted Kelsey. I'm not sure if he drafted Fletcher. He may have. Either way, I'm sure he's got a lot of respect for Andy Reid. So could you see him go to the Chiefs, especially if they lose Chris Jones? Just think about that. Chris Jones leaves, and they're able to bring in Fletcher Cox. Don't think that can't happen. Kelsey, we're still waiting to hear. I'm almost positive that he's going to retire. It's just a gut feeling. I'd be surprised if he comes back. I don't think he wants to retire, but I think when he really sits down and thinks about it, his 2 kids, or his 3 kids, he's got 3 daughters. He's got his, lucrative career in the media that he's already successful in, and he's going to have more opportunities. And the fact that his body's just going to be, it's already telling him to hang it up. I mean, his body takes a beating every year. And I think he's going to ultimately come to the conclusion that he is going to hang him up. That's what I feel. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to see another year of Kelsey. We all love him in Philadelphia, but I'm just reading the tea leaves, and I just think that he is going to retire. But we'll see. I hope I'm wrong. I don't want to be right. It's one of those predictions that I don't want to be right that I make. So again, we talked about the YouTube, so I'm excited about that. Hopefully you guys transition with me over there. And again, I'm not leaving any of the podcast platforms that you currently are listening to this program on now. It will still be available there. But if you join me on YouTube, that's kind of where the future of this show and podcast is going in that direction. Remember, you can email us at petwgp@gmail.com. Again, that's petwgp@gmail.com. You can let me know your comments, feedback now about any of this, about the Eagles, about the YouTube, about whatever you want to talk about. Just say hello. All that kind of fun stuff. Love to hear from you, as always. And let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to get out there. That might be it. I'd be interested in your thoughts, though. What do you guys think of the Super Bowl? What do you guys think of Andy Reid? And let me ask you this. How far away are the Eagles to the Chiefs? The Eagles beat the Chiefs this year. Let's not forget that. Right? So, but that was a different Eagles team. As we know. There's no way they were beating the Chiefs at the end of the season. But they did beat the Chiefs this year. So how far away are they from being a contender? That's the question as my phone is, of course, going off. Gotta love that. So, yeah. Lots to talk about. I'm going to be here on Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff throughout the off season. As always, appreciate you tuning in. Thank you very much. Love to have you here. Appreciate your passion for the birds, much like I have. Appreciate your passion and listenership to this program and this podcast. You are a huge part of it, and I thank you very much as always. With that said, keep listening, keep the faith. The Eagles will fly high again, and we'll be back to talk about it, of course. So stick with us. We'll be back soon. Till then, fly, Eagles, fly. Take care.